guys, we're continuing our Central Texas tour here at Camp Maybry Military Forces Museum. The last episode of Captain's Log and the Texas tour was the Alamo, and it's been doing one of my best, so I figured that we should continue the tour here in Camp Maybry Museum. Now, I've already seen it in a previous experience before I started this channel, before I started recording this video, and there's a lot of information, and there's no way we can cover all of it in a reasonable amount of time. So come here, it's right near Austin, and admission is free. All you need is an ID. So come over here. If you check over here, apparently this place was created in 1892. This place is an old place. So let's see what's inside. Hey guys, so we're gonna start at the very beginning of the chronological point. You see, there's two parts of this. In a later part of the video, you're gonna see the Great Hall filled with weapons and artillery and vehicles. But we're gonna start with the area they have dedicated to history. We're starting at the very first chronological point. And we're going to focus on the artifacts, as there are far too much information about the battles that we can't get to. So the very first artifact here is right over here. It's a fire extinguisher. Just kidding. The first thing we're going to focus on are these things. First is a Mexican cavalry sword. It's using this version is using a Spanish broadsword blade and a French light cavalry hilt. That's the handle. It was used during the 1700s, and the hilt's a French model, IX, year 9, and it dates from 1800 to 1801. Now, I'm more interested in this bit. It's a Newtown matchlock musket. A musket is basically a really old version of a gun. As you can see, the stock isn't exactly what you see in modern stocks. It doesn't have a pistol grip. It's really old, super long, and basically that's the firing mechanism. Basically, a match would spark with a flint, which would cause an explosion, which would cause some black powder, an early version of gunpowder, to explode, launching a bullet out of the barrel. It wasn't even a bullet, just a round. So, as you can see, it doesn't even have a trigger. So let's move on to the next bit. Hey guys, so here is a New Orleans Grays shell jacket. This is the jacket that the New Orleans Grays, which were two companies of volunteers that came over to help us in Texas against Mexico, they wore this thing. Here's a gourd canteen, which was basically a water bottle, a version of a water bottle. This here is a Bowie knife, pretty famous. It's theorized to be the kind of knife that James Bowie used. Now, if we move over here, here's a Mexican grenadier uniform. So, here is his bayonet. There is his either bottle of grenades or water bottle. Actually, I think the grenades were carried in the pouch at the back. There's a pouch back there. And next to him is the brown smooth-bore musket. That musket was the key, one of the many reasons, but the primary reason why Mexico lost the war against Texas, the Revolutionary War. It's a British-made rifle, but that doesn't mean it's bad. The problem was they were using it improperly. the Texans, which were using the Kentucky rifle over there, they were using it long distance. This thing was their equivalent of a close quarters weapon. It was designed to be very short range. Meanwhile, the Kentucky rifle was designed to be kind of like their age's designated marksman rifle, accurate at a much longer distance. The Mexicans were engaging the Texians at a much longer range than the Brown Bess was designed for. That's one of the main reasons why the Mexicans lost the Texas Revolution. Over here is a pretty large diorama of the Battle of the Alamo. As you can see, it's set up as part of during the invasion. If you want to see more about the Alamo, go check out my dedicated Alamo video where I actually went to the Alamo itself and did a video on it. That's in this same series, so check it out. Captain's Log, the Alamo. Over here is the North Wall. One of the first places to fall. You see, it was crumbling and very damaged. They realized they didn't even need ladders to get in, they could just climb it. The Texians tried to defend, but ultimately they pulled back troops to defend it from the place that they ultimately were needed. Troops over here on this side were moving over there to defend the North Wall, but that also allowed this area to be captured quickly. This cannon. That was their most powerful cannon. It was the 18-pounder at the Alamo. I believe that back there, the wooden fence was where Davy Crockett was stationed. In fact, back there, you see the guy surrounded by, the figure surrounded by Mexican troops. I believe that is supposed to be Davy Crockett, because that was his post, the wooden fence. That was the church, the Alamo Church, where the last of the Texian defenders hid and stood. The last stand of the Alamo defenders. Now, if we move on to here, here's a Republic of Texas Navy gunner's mate uniform. Their uniforms were pretty elaborate. As you can see, gunner's mate uniform, captain's uniform. Wonder how I would look with this uniform on. I don't know. And here is this is a diorama of a part of the Battle of San Jacinto. Up here is a newspaper. You see the people in the U.S. really wanted to know what was going on in Texas, and this is the newspaper announcing the Battle of Goliad. This diorama specifically is about the taking of a cannon called the Gold Standard. Not sure why they called it that, except for the fact it's a golden cannon. Later in the story, later on, it was on a Texas flagship. It was on the Texas flagship but the Mexicans took it back. However, the joke was on the Mexicans as the Texas flagship. After they took it and basically made it part of their own navy, it ended up sinking due to a storm. That was a pretty long clip, so I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, so next to me is a M1840 foot officer's sword, which is the standard sword used by the American officers during the Mexican-American War. Here is a Republic of Texas redback, their equivalent of $1. It came in $5, $10, $100, and $500 bills. It was extremely low priced. At the first time, it was only 37 cents to $1. But it eventually got to the point where it was 2 cents per dollar per Republic of Texas redback. It got to the point where it was worthless and not even legal tender. Over here are two pay warrants for the Navy. They were really dealing with money issues. This is a veteran medal, a medal for a veteran. It belonged to a guy called Ansel C. Hurd Jr., who was a corporal in the Mexican-American War. He donated it to this. He donated it to here. Here's a powder horn, specifically belonged to a guy called Henry Woodland, who served in the Texas Army and later the Texas Rangers. So, how about we move on to over here? This is the uniform of a Texas infantry officer. It's the regular uniform, sword. I think they're supposed to have a musket, but it's not included in this. I'm not quite sure, though. Here's a Confederate infantryman from the Civil War. Although the wool was rare, although it was the official type, it got very rare. So it was more common to just be in a jean shell jacket with U.S. buttons and a brass button bearing their letter R. So, and jean pants. So it got to the point where they weren't even wearing the uniform. They've got a musket, specifically a Model 1861 Springfield. It's a muzzle loading and was the standard firearm of U.S. troops, but the Confederates also used it. Here's a Confederate first lieutenant uniform with a pistol and a sword. Well, how about we go see that cannon over there? So here we are next to a little interactive thing. They've got to represent a horrible, by all accounts, horrible incident. During the Battle of Mir, troops were captured, and Santa Anna ordered the killing of every 10th man in a unit of Texians. In March 25th, 1843, Texian forces were forced to draw from a jar, like this one, containing 159 white beans and 17 black beans. If you got a white bean, yeah, you survived, but you're still a prisoner. If you got a black bean, they shoot you. Let's see what my luck is. I got a white bean. Yay. Which means I survived. Now moving on over here, this is the standard naval gun station for the Republic of Texas ship Independence, the one with the gold standard. This cannon, I believe, is supposed to represent the gold standard. Now over here is solid shot magazine ammunition. Basically, solid shot is just the normal bullets. Meanwhile, over there, chain shot is designed to do more damage. The idea is the two balls at the end of the chains would spread out, and anything in their path or between their paths, thanks to the chain, would be utterly destroyed. Now, up there is what's called a block and tackle. It's basically a special type of old-fashioned Rube Goldberg machine to help do just basic work. The one on top is designed to help close the lid if they need to do that. There's the ones next to the cannon is designed to push it back in so they could pull it back in and to reload it and push it back out to fire. Apparently back then they hadn't figured out to set up a way of using recoil to have it come back in. Maybe they didn't have that tech, maybe it wasn't powerful enough, I don't really know. Up top are a bunch of things that they would stick into the barrel for various purposes. At the top is a sponge. It would be used to clean the barrel to make sure nothing would cause the shot to explode. The wormer is to go in there to get rid of anything that was remaining of the cartridge so it doesn't jam the barrel. The ladle is the one second to the bottom. It's to measure the gunpowder, and it's the only way to properly get it into the barrel. It was pushed down in all the way into the barrel, and then it turned upside down to dump the powder, and then it pulled out, and then the rammer, which is at the very bottom, is going to push it in. Then it pulls out, they put the wad in, push it in, and then the shot in, push it in, and then they would fire. Then there's the ling stock, which is at the very bottom. It held the slow match used to fire the cannon. There's a process right here explaining how they would load it. We don't have time to cover that, but again, come here if you can. There's a whole lot we're not showing you. A whole lot of information about a whole lot of battles and a whole lot of incidents that it's really interesting. I don't have time to cover it on camera, but if you can get over here and see it for yourself, please do. Again, it's near Texas. It's near Austin. It's totally free. All you need is an ID. For the record, this is not a sponsorship. They did not pay me. It's just, this is a really interesting place, and we don't have time to cover everything. So come here and see it for yourself. Hey guys, so now we're going to talk about the cannon. Now back then, they didn't have standardized bullets the way we do. This is actually a full cartridge. Doesn't look like a lot like a modern cartridge, right? Fully loaded. It's got the bullet up front and all the gunpowder back here. Here's the ball that it would launch. This is a 6-pounder. That cannon is a 6-pounder. So in theory, if this was a working cannon, it could shoot anything here that says it's 6 pounds. This here is a vent pick. It's used to clear the vent hole at the top of the cannon barrel to make sure that it can actually be activated and fire properly. Over here is a shell cartridge. They started using shells as basically a shotgun shell. It would land, then explode after it had been fired, sending parts, such as the ones here, everywhere. Here's a canister cartridge. Similar to the one over here, it worked by sending things everywhere. The only difference is, instead of just having a shell, a ball of solid stuff that would explode and they would fly everywhere. Not really sure what would fly everywhere, but it would. Over here, they had dedicated parts, the balls inside, that would be launched everywhere, rather than just, whatever parts make it out. Over here is the first artillery shells. Here is a series of early artillery shells. It's left to right on this side. At the first is grape shot, basically a bunch of balls of small pieces of iron and other materials would be stuffed into the ball and then launched, and then they would explode in the air or on the ground. At first, that was still in use during the Civil War, but it was being replaced. The smallest one here is a 4-pounder. Next to it is just a standard 6-pound ball that was found in the Vicksburg battlefield, and here's the 12-pound Napoleon. It's the most common artillery piece during the Civil War, and this specific one was recovered in the battlefield. Although what it looks like just a normal cannonball, it's actually a shell fitted with an internal timed fuse that would detonate after a specific number of seconds after it was shot. The explosion would send a bunch of fragments all over the place, and precursor to modern artillery shells and even grenades. Rocket-propelled grenades. Back here is a 24-pound rifled artillery shell. Here is a series of Hotchkiss artillery shells. The first one is complete, second one has been damaged. The second one is fired but hasn't exploded. The third one is a cutaway, and the fourth one is a 3-inch that was recovered from a battlefield in Alabama. This one was also from Vicksburg. Here's a cover of artilleryman's uniform, and here's some more information about this cannon. This was what they used to fire it. Now, I can't tell you everything that it says here, so again, please come here. I cannot possibly just look at all the pages on the walls. Unless I want this video to be like an hour long, there's no way I can cover this all. So, I'll see you in the next clip. This is a diorama representing the Battle of Galveston. In said battle, a unit led by a man named Commodore Smith on a ship known as the Bayou City was modified into a cotton clad. They added a lot of, I think, hay and cotton bales on it to serve as early version as cover. Basically, what they did was they tried to ram into enemy ships and basically didn't use cannons. They used guys with rifles. In this, it depicts them when they the CSS Bayou rams the USS Harriet Lane, and the troops on board the Bayou City boards the Harriet Lane, and they manage to capture the ship. So over here, first, let's go in this way. First, here's two M1851 Colt Navy revolvers. Colt had a really, at that point, up to around World War II, Colt had a really good working relationship with the government. They made government revolvers and, pretty famously, the Colt 1911. The very first pistol the military used that was magazine fed. Here is the ammunition, percussion caps, somewhere, and spare cylinder. Oh, here, ammunition, percussion cap, and spare cylinder. The ammunition is, well, you know what the ammunition is. Honestly, I'm surprised that they fired those things. Basically, I think what they did to make the shooting even faster was, instead of shooting the 6th and pulling it out, having to reload it manually, you could remove the whole cylinder, load another cylinder, and then keep shooting, and it's kind of like an early version of a magazine. Over here is a Lafau M1858 revolver. It's a pinfire revolver, 6-shot open frame design, and the federal government purchased around 13,000 to supply them with cavalry forces. The Confederates used them too. This is the McClellan saddle, and they used it it's the primary one up till World War II, because at that point they stopped using cavalry soldiers. So it was the last major saddle that they used. Here is some more parts. The spur, star syrup, and bridle bit. For any of my viewers who know about what this means and horse riding in general, please put it in the comments. So, my camera was unwilling to share this on camera and caused the pause the recording, we're gonna have to move on in this clip. Here's a box for a pistol cartridge box, which was worn on the belt, and contained 18 rounds of pistol ammunition. It was similar to its infantry counterpart, and it was designed to safely carry cartridges and keep them dry, in all but when it was just pouring rain. It's a standard equipment for cavalrymen, officers, or other soldiers that are issued pistols. Honestly, I'm surprised, but apparently it's a newer thing where everyone has a rifle and a pistol. Soldiers used to only have rifles. And yeah, suppose we should move on. Hey guys, so next to me is an M1852 officer's sword. Pretty simple, it's a US Navy officer's sword. Over here is a diorama of the Battle of Sabine Pass. This battle is notable due to the fact that a small amount of Confederate troops, the Davis Guards, were able to resist a large group of US Navy vessels in a mud fort. The main reason they were able to do that is just training. They were so well trained, they could fire their cannons faster than any experienced unit. In fact, fun fact, they got the locals gave them medals to commemorate commemorate the battle. It was the only official medal that the Confederate States of America had given out during the war, and that's because as soon as the president of the Confederates discovered that this happened, he made sure to make the Confederate Congress say, yeah, it's an official medal. So moving on over here. Here are several carbines. We're going to do top to bottom, then move over, have several rifles. Top to bottom, then move around and do the top to bottom to the other side. At the top is a Sharps carbine. It's the most widely used Civil War carbine. In the middle is a Model 1841 Mississippi percussion rifle with a bayonet, a pretty long one at that, and a Model 1816 musket. Over here is an Enfield musket worm. Basically, you stick this to a ramrod to remove an unfired bullet from the barrel of the gun. Okay, over here at the top is a Merrill rifle. It's unique because it's one of the few rifles of the time that's breech loading. In the middle is an 1849 Austrian Kammerbusch long rifle. Around here is a ramrod for a Springfield musket, and at the bottom is an Enfield Tower rifled musket plus a bayonet. Here is a musket Tompion, I don't know, which is inserted into a barrel as like a dust cover to keep it from getting wet and dusty. Here is a Confederate cartridge box and belt. Box and belt. Here is a bayonet and scabbard, which is a fancy word for bayonet holster. Over here is a cartridge, paper tube. Here's some fired mini bullets, what they used at the time as a bullet. And here's a mini bullet, a non-fired one that they haven't shot yet. Over here, once you're ready, is a Sharps new Model 1863 carbine. It was new at the time. It was basically the same thing as the Sharps carbine over there, only a newer model. And, well, yeah. Over here is another Sharps carbine. This one is the Sharps Hankin Navy carbine. And it was a lot less successful than those two. from the looks of it. They're not sure why this star got here. Anyway, over here, well, there's enough over there to merit its own clip. Hey guys, specs to me, here's 3 things we need to talk about before we can move on to this and that. First, 12-pound ball. It was fired during the Battle of Palmetto, 12-pound howitzer. Next to here is a D-guard bowie knife. It's carried by Southern troops. It's a good quality, and it was believed to be a part of the Jones, Texas Cavalry. This is a model 1831 French sword. Now, despite the fact it literally looks like something out of a Roman battle movie, it was an artillery sword that they only used to cut brush. Seriously, why do you design something literally looking like it comes out of the Roman Empire just to cut brush? I'll never understand that. Over here is a diorama of the Battle of Palmetto Ranch. It was, by all accounts, the final battle of the Civil War. What little remained of the Confederate forces were in this battle. I don't know the specifics, but I do know that this was the final battle of the whole Civil War. And apparently there was just some random Mexican steamboat that happened to witness the whole thing while it was going down the Rio Grande. Over here is quite a bit of stuff. Here is a Mindo spear that was made in the Philippines and brought back as a war souvenir by a guy called John A. Holland with the 33rd Infantry. Here is a .45 caliber model 1884 trapdoor Springfield musket with a bayonet, scabbard, and whatever a frog is. There's a canteen, water bottle, some epaulets, which are fancy shoulder pads that denote rank, and a dress helmet. Also a bag. Here's a little hint of what you'll see later. Okay, let's move on to the next section about the modern day. So we finished the room that is about Texas history and the Civil War. Now, let's head over here to the part of the room that's about modern day fighting, from the Cold War to Afghanistan to the modern day. Let's start right here. Over here is a diorama of the 9/11 escort. In the morning of the attacks, two officers were escorting Air Force One. This depicts right when they were landing in Louisiana to refuel. Over here are some pieces of rubble from the attack that was destroyed in the rubble that were pieces of the Pentagon, with the part of it that was attacked during the September 11th. It wasn't just, they didn't just hit the Twin Towers, they also hit the Pentagon, a few other places. One of the notable places was a failed hit where the terrorists took over a plane, but the brave passengers on board managed to try to retake it, and they managed to, at the very least, crash it. We aren't quite sure what happened there. They got some information out using cell phones, but we don't know much about what happened. What we do know is that they saved probably a lot of lives at the cost of their own. Moving on over here this is a uniform for the U.S. Army, just good old-fashioned uniform for the U.S. Army. Over here is various types of anti-personnel mines. A sign that says danger mines. More danger mines says a map of Bosnia Herzegovina. I don't know how to pronounce that. Herzegovina map. And this is a so-called Yugoslavian M70 AB2 rifle. But be honest with yourself, it's a rip-off AK-47. The Soviets were basically saying, hey, an ally of ours needs a main weapon. Give them the design of an AK-47, tell them to modify it a bit, and boom, it's totally not an AK-47, guys. I don't know why they're letting all their allies basically rip them off, but maybe it has something to do with them being communists. I don't know. Hey guys, this is a piece of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall. It was presented to the airmen of the Texas military forces to honor the fact all they had done to help stop the Soviet Union. Everyone on the west of the Iron Curtain, even the ones who lived right next to it, hated it. As you can see right here, the West Berliner is just completely like one of the main West Berlin hobbies during the Cold War was putting graffiti on it and just defacing it. Dedicated to the soldiers of the Texas Army National Guard, whose service during the Cold War helped bring the Berlin Wall down. Hey guys, so this is the collection of Major General John B. Garrett. He had a lot of guns and a lot of knives, as you can see. He was in charge of running a checkpoint, and he was in charge of collecting any weapons from disarmed German soldiers. This carbine, this guy, was given to him by a German flag officer. The rest, he appears to have gotten from a warehouse next to where he worked. He is currently a major general, or he was a major general at the time of his retirement, I believe. But he has the distinction of starting from private and holding every single rank the military had to offer during his career, with the exception of technical sergeant. Every single rank. That's pretty impressive. It's a World War II era Jeep. Not really much else to say about it. It's a Jeep. So these three Jeeps are M151A1 multiple utility tactical trucks. This is the standard model with a roof. This is, I don't know what's cluing me off, but I'm pretty sure it's a combat version. Pretty sure. I don't know exactly what's cluing me it off. Wink wink, it's the machine gun. Anyway, over here is the 49th Armored Division soldier uniform, and this truck, well, it's a radio truck. You can see the radio back there. Okay, moving on over here here's an improvised explosive device training device, I believe. IED training device. They would train soldiers in how to disable IEDs with these. These are anti-personnel submunition training rounds. They would be simulated bombs. This is a Kalashnikov machine gun. This is an RPG. From the looks of it, it's pretty scrapped together. And so is this one, but this one's wood. So these are improvised rocket RPGs, and it was these two are part of a large weapon cache seized by the 2nd Battalion, 112th Armor in Iraq. Over here is the renowned M2 HB Browning heavy machine gun, also known as the Madus. It's a very powerful machine gun, and it's so good that it's still in service in the US military today. a weapon from literally World War II, still in service today. Here is a figure wearing the desert combat uniform. It's camouflage with a pistol. I believe it's a Beretta, but that's just judging off. That's what the military had as a sidearm. This is the quite unique combat bike. A man named Sergeant First Class David Willis scrapped it together got bored, and then decided to scrap it together using parts he either found on base or were sent to him by his family. Next to this is an SPG-9 recoilless rifle. It's basically a small artillery cannon. Be warned, even though it says it's an artillery recoilless gun, recoilless rifles aren't recoilless. You don't want to be standing behind that when it shoots. Unless you want your legs to be burned off, of course. Over here is a Soviet DSHKM 38/46 heavy machine gun. It's the standard machine gun of the Warsaw Pact. And it was also sold to basically any Soviet allied country in the world. Over here is some more information about the War on Terror. These are some artillery shells and mine fragments, a large fragment, a tanker helmet. This is what would be what a tank crew would use, an old-fashioned field phone, and this big guy is the ZPU-4 AA gun. It's designed to shoot aircraft out of the sky. If you weren't clued in by the fact that its name is AA, anti-air. Over here are various patches and medal earned by a group of US soldiers known as Red Team. They were deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and here is various things that they've earned along the years. Is the uniform for a general enlisted man. Dress uniform for general enlisted man. Dress uniform means the uniform they wear in like parties and generally when they're not in combat. So here's his dress uniform, jump boots, and helmet. Apparently helmets was part of this. And this is the general officer's dress uniform. I believe, not quite sure, I can't spot a rank here. Maybe they didn't put one on. Maybe I'm missing something. But this is the general officer's enlisted uniform. And over here is an M20A1 bazooka and M228A2 rocket. It's a bazooka. Over here is a commemorative paperweight that has an emblem on it for each of the multinational forces and observers. Here's that group's forces caps. Basically, so this is an M20A1 bazooka and an M28A2 rocket. It's a bazooka. Basically, you know what happens. You stick the rocket to one end, it comes out, I think for some, like the RPG, the same end, but for the bazooka, it comes out the other end. Okay. So over here is some stuff for a group known as the Multinational Forces and Observers. They're basically a group that works with the UN to make sure there are no... What? I'm okay. Hey guys, so we're here for day 3. As you see, we're gonna do the Great Hall today, plus what's called the Hall of Honor. Let's see what that is in a while. So here we have some information on the 112th and 124th Cavalry units. I'm let's see, 199% sure that they came from Texas. So, yeah. I don't have time to go over all this, because, like... So, again, if you want to see the information, there's too much for us to cover in one video, or we can't cover it, but it'd be ridiculously long. Just come over here and see it for yourself. It's right next to Austin. Again, I forgot its name, but it's real close to Austin. You can see it earlier in the video, and admission is completely free. So, here's some more. So here's some more information about the area. This little thing is about saddle boxes, which are just basically boxes containing cavalry units equipment. Here's a AA machine cannon actually, type 98. It served throughout World War II. As you can see, it's one of those ones with a magazine from the top. They wanted to minimize it, so it's technically, that's the cannon, or at least a model of the cannon. Some more information, a bit about how helicopter evacuation became a thing. And over here, this thing here is the M1A1 75mm howitzer with an main carriage. It's a pretty powerful thing with 3 to 6 rounds per minute. Not much in the terms of normal fighting. However, when compared to, that time with artillery, yeah, that's a lot, although it wouldn't be much compared to, like, a machine gun. So over here is some more information about its position. I'll see you for the rest in the next clip. That's it for that section, so we'll be moving on here to the Great Hall. Now, unfortunately, this place is close to closing. However, that won't affect your video. So for me, tomorrow, I'll come here and record the next clip. However, for you, the next clip is however many seconds it takes for this clip to finish away. So, I'll see you in the next clip, which is tomorrow for me, but for you, it's only in 5 seconds, so bye. So, I'm not entirely sure why we had to stop there, but we did, even though what we're going to talk about next is right next to it, so, well, let's just get on with it, I suppose. Here is an M3 submachine gun, more commonly known as the grease gun. You see, the more famous Thompson SMG, it was also ridiculously expensive for the time. So basically, they were like, we need to replace it. So they used this guy, the M3 grease gun, to replace it. Here's a model 1939 machete, which is basically just a fancy wilderness knife. Here is a Japanese Type 99 rifle, nicknamed the Arisaka, which is a reference to their designer. Here's a China, Burma, India patch, which was it was the insignia of the CBI, China, Burma, India, area of fighting. Here's a Type 30 bayonet, most common from the Japanese. Over here is a Type 96 machine gun, Japanese, Type 93 trench periscope, Japanese, a model 1894 bugle, this guy, and a Japanese bugle. This guy, back in the day, that was the main way they communicated, like do-do-do, and the soldiers, different ways different call-outs from the bugle would inform the soldiers. Now over here is a Japanese mess kit, which is just basically a lunchbox, a soldier's lunchbox. Here is a Type 92 Japanese helmet. And here is an M2 fragmentation grenade. And speaking of which, the Japanese really seem to like having their military stuff just be type, number, whatever it is. Hey guys, so now to something more interesting. So here is two dining utensils. An M1910 canteen, which is just basically a fancy water bottle, and an officer's mess bowl, basically a fancy bowl. Over here is the slightly more interesting Japanese officer's sword and its scabbard. Back then they were still having officers run around with swords. At least at that point they were having them sword and gun. So at least they had a gun. Anyway, over here is a Japanese horse kit, basically. A saddle, a map case so they can hold their maps, a holster, and a Nambu Type 14 pistol. Again, Japs really love naming Japs during World War II really love naming their things type blank number. Fun fact for this one, it has a special type of cartridge, 8x22 Nambu. It was extremely underpowered. 8x22 Nambu is around the same size as 9mm, but it actually exists because this pistol was too underpowered to handle 9mm. So they had to have a smaller cartridge for it to be actually able to fire. If you loaded a real 9mm into that thing, it would explode, basically. So that's why they needed a lighter powered cartridge. It also jammed and just didn't work frequently, so it ended up just being one of the worst pistols of World War II, as opposed to the American 1911, which was one of the best. Hey, so here we've got an M1873 rifle and its attached bayonet. Back here is a model 1902 cartridge box. They stored bullets in this before they decided it'd be a good idea to adopt magazines. So over here are some hats for the Texas Volunteer Guard, which was their equivalent of the National Guard. Apparently, the people at this base, the volunteer guards at this base, played a lot of polo and won a lot of trophies, as viewed here. Over here is a box of ammunition. Specifically, it's designed for the 30-06 cartridge, which was used in the M1 Garand and the Springfield that we saw back there. So, yeah, let's move on to the vehicle. We are next to the M715 truck. It was the primary truck that the U.S. military used during the Vietnam War, actually, and it was designed by Kaiser G. Fun fact, Kaiser means king in German. So, yeah. It's a decent, I don't know much about cars, so, well, it was the main one the military used, so it's gotta have been good at least. Over here is an ejection seat. Apparently a dude called Captain Kenneth J. Curry was using this seat in his fighter, F-16A fighter, during a training exercise where his engine started failing and he had to get out using this ejection seat. Eventually it was recovered and used as a trainer at this military base, I believe, since it was used as a trainer. So here we are next to an TSC-60 communication system. It's basically a truck or a module that the military brings around to places. It's basically a mobile command post, communication posts primarily. Basically a bunch of low-ranking officers will run around in there, calling people, getting information, and trying to make sure there's no friendly fire incidents. Hey guys, so this is either a model or an actual trainer pod. Basically, it's designed to be mimicking the design of F-16 fighter cockpits. Although it might appear as though it's designed to train pilots in how to get in everything in their ship, in reality, it's to train ground crew how to get an injured pilot out of here if necessary. If my camera woman will get so you can see the tip of the plane, there's an emergency stop button in case the exercise turns into less of an exercise. Over here, Niner, I'm ready to take off. 3, 2, 1. Vroom, vroom. Yeah, I think here is supposed to be where the heads-up display is, and here, if you can come over here, there's a whole lot of controls. None of them are actually working. There's some more here. Basically, in a plane, the whole cockpit is controls. You're lucky that there's no controls on your seat. Hey guys, so here is a 75mm M1897A4 field gun. It's basically a mobile artillery unit. They used it the way they'd use any other artillery unit, blasting the enemy ships. So enemy vehicles, or enemy anything basically. Here, up there, is a L4A liaison plane. As they used it, the military used it for practically everything. You name it, they probably did it. They used it in every branch of service for liaison, basically going from one base to another to carry messages, to scouting, going over enemy areas to see it, everything but straight up dogfights. Yeah, so let's actually move on to the big stuff. So right here, we have the Maschinengewehr, which is some complicated German word for machine gun. From 1908 to 1945, right here. Fun fact, if they have this big barrel, but then with something sticking out, whether it's on top or at the bottom, it means more likely than not, if it's got a big barrel but a shorter stick out, then it's water cooled. That means this whole thing is basically just a water tank with a barrel sticking through it to make it not be too hot to shoot. It's a very common thing you see until they get into like making Gatling guns and stuff. Well, let's move on to the next thing. Hey guys, so here, you're gonna have to get in real close to see, it's the one down there. Not this guy, it's this guy, is the M1895 Marlin, 1895/14 Marlin potato digger machine gun from 1914 to 1921. It was a pretty powerful gun. a machine gun, and it had a unique lever action design. I know you must be thinking, how is a machine gun lever action? It was one of the first ways they used recoil to reload it. Basically, the recoil would pull the lever, which would recock the gun, and then it shoots, and then the guy keeps pulling the trigger, and then shoots, and then it goes again and again and again until either the chain or the magazine or whatever they're sticking into it to make the bullets go in runs out. That's how the Marlin was worked. And also, you must be wondering why it's called a potato digger. Your guess is as good as mine because it doesn't say here. I'm guessing because it digs a big enough hole once you shoot that it can dig up potatoes. But again, your guess is as good as mine since it doesn't say it here. So behind me are three variants of one of the most famous vehicles used during World War II, the Jeep. As you can see, there are several behind me. Right here is one without a roof and with a machine gun. I believe it's an early version of the M2 Browning, an extremely powerful machine gun that's still in service with the US military today. Now in the middle is, from the looks of it, just a standard Jeep with a roof. Not sure what material it's made out of. I think leather or something, but then again, I don't know. And over here is basically the same thing as the first one, only it doesn't have a roof nor a machine gun. It's just a standard. Yeah, it's just a standard. It's a standard Jeep with nothing on it, no special attachments. It was made by Ford. It's the Ford GPW Jeep specifically. Yeah, that's about it. Let's move on to the next section. Behind me is a 4DR sedan. Now, you might be asking, and pretty rightfully too, why is there a sedan in the middle of a room full of military vehicles? Apparently, the Adjutant General of the Army used it. That's the only reason there's an absurdly civilian car in this garage, basically full of military vehicles. There are two tanks over there, for heaven's sake. So behind me is an OH-58A/C Kiowa helicopter. It's one of those helicopters, along with the Cobra and Huey, that served in Vietnam. As you can see, it's pretty small. At least, but it's small for a helicopter at least. It's highly maneuverable and ideally suited for observation missions. It was continually upgrading, which allows for the OH-58D Warrior variant to remain a vital component in the military well into the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan a few years ago. So this thing is still around and kicking. It's also still in the Army National Guard and has been used in counter-drug and homeland security operations. Now, behind me, if my camera woman will at least get the focus on where I am, next to me is an extremely powerful, extremely dangerous BDU-50 practice bomb. I was kidding about it being dangerous. It's just a fake practice bomb they use to practice bomb droppings. You guys were far enough away. I thought you wouldn't notice that it literally says bomb practice next to it. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Hey, next to me is a M151A2 Mutt. It's not a dog. It's a military utility tactical truck. It was in service between 1970 and 2000. It's basically a Jeep. It's not a Jeep, it's a Mutt. But it's basically a military truck. Yeah, and that's about it. Hey guys, so behind me are two recoilless rifles, basically cannons. the M40 recoilless rifle, and the M20. I'm guessing this is the M40 and this is the M20, but I don't really know. Recoilless rifles work by using a vented breech and perforated shell casing to allow gas generated by an exploding propellant charge to escape the breech. This greatly reduces the rearward pressure caused by firing. As a result, the weapon does not need a recoil system, significantly reducing its weight and complexity. Despite the lack of recoil, this weapon... Hey guys, right behind me is an M3A1 light tank that saw service throughout World War II. It's a pretty small tank, but it's not designed for anti-tank combat. If you see this, the main gun is small for a tank's main gun. Specifically, it's a 37mm gun. When compared to the Sherman right here, whose primary gun was a 105 howitzer. Well, you can see what I mean. This guy was designed to bust through other tanks. This guy was designed to bust through men and horses. But that doesn't mean it's not powerful. It's also got two 30mm caliber machine guns. That guy and that guy. It's pretty powerful. It's a tank after all. And primarily, it started as part of the Lend-Lease Act, with America sending out a bunch of these guys, plus a few other vehicles, to their allies in Europe to help them fight against the Nazis before they got dragged into the war due to Pearl Harbor. Although, once America came in, well, you know the story. They had a lot more of these guys, plus just generally a lot more equipment, and were able to make a lot more. But moving on to the most famous, the absolutely most famous tank of World War II, the M4A3 Sherman. One of the if not the most famous tank of World War II. This guy was designed to bust tanks. It was designed to bulldoze through lines of the enemy troops, including several enemy panzers. It was given to all Allied forces through the Lend-Lease and saw service during the Korean War as well. It was actually nicknamed the Sherman by the British 8th Army. It was this guy was the best tank of the world, and if it's not the best tank, it's one of the best tanks. It's a pretty powerful tank, not to mention it's big. It's pretty big, like, I don't know, like, what, 9 feet tall? I don't know. Maybe it says here. Yeah, it's probably 9 feet. Over here is an M4A1 mortar carrier half-track. It's a special type of vehicle. If you see it over here, the front are wheels, the backs are tracks. Hence the name half-track. It's a mortar carrier, which means basically, before then, soldiers would run up, plop down the mortars, fire. But with this guy, they turned the mortar into basically a truck weapon. They would drive around, stop somewhere, shoot, drive around. I think some trained crews, if not everyone, can shoot while driving. Yeah, this guy was powerful. It was designed to be very fast and had modest armor, and wasn't very good when it came to deflecting damage beyond small weaponry. Any type of machine gun or anti-tank round, this guy is gone. Hey guys, so next to me is a Class 500 fire truck. Even the military needed fire trucks. It was provided its firefighting equipment was provided by a company called American La France. It was an older manufacturer, one of the oldest. The company was created by a dude with the very unusual name of Capt'n La France. I mean, did he invent trucks? Why are they called trucks? Or why does he have the name Capt'n? I don't know. Anyway, this is a pretty it remained in service throughout the 1970s and was recovered in 2009 from it was retired in the early 1990s, and then recovered in 2009, which repaired it, and ultimately brought it here. It's operational, in fact, and was brought here in May 2012, the same year I was born, 2012. That's about much for here, but over here, these are the twin sister cannons. Here are replicas. Looks like let's see if we can finish this episode up in 15 minutes. So here are replicas of the famed twin sister cannons. They were used by the Texian forces at the Battle of San Jacinto and Battle of San Jacinto during the Texas Revolution, and Battle of Galveston during the Civil War. These reproductions were built in 1975 and used by the Guard of the Republic, which is a volunteer organization within the Texas military forces to help celebrate the bicentennial, whatever that is, of the U.S. I think bicentennial means birthday, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, these guys originally started out in November 1835 when the people in Cincinnati, Ohio, raised funds to aid Texas in the Texas Revolution. They bought 2 cannons from the Texas rebels. Since the U.S. was officially neutral, the cannon was referred to as hollow wave. 2 6-pound guns were manufactured at the foundry of Greenwood and Webb in Cincinnati, then shipped down the Mississippi River to New Orleans. From there, a guy from William Bryan took official possession of the guns and took them down to the battlefield. The guns, which didn't have anything but the cannons themselves, were brought to Galveston Island, and, well, the rest, they just got into the war. Behind me is the OH-23B helicopter. It served between 1952 to 1990 and must have been an okay helicopter, but honestly, I'm not sure why the military adopted it without any hull protecting its engine, at all. Seriously. Has there never been an incident where the military thought, oh, maybe we should put some hull on top of that so no enemy soldiers can just pop the engine? Anyway, this served during the Korean War and is most famous for its service during said war as an air ambulance. Again, not sure where they'd put the people. Maybe, well, there's 3 seats there, so maybe they just brought 2 people, and the third seat would go to the injured soldier. Yeah, not quite sure why the military would use such an, well, exposed design, but they did, and it served them well apparently, so thanks for your service. This is the BSA WD-20 motorcycle. It served in the British Armed Forces between 1937 and 1945. It was a motorcycle, as you can see, that was... the original variant was rejected due to bad engine wear, whatever that is. However, next year, an improved version was accepted. The soldiers who got it didn't like it at all. They referred to it as plotters, in fact. However, the government said, no, you have to keep them, as they were extremely reliable, and they were simple and easy to repair. Yeah, it's a military motorcycle. Thank you guys for watching. Again, if you want to come see this, because there's a lot we didn't go over, come over here to the Maybry, Texas Military Forces Museum. Admission is free. You just need to write your name on a paper, plus how many people are with you in your party. Please like and subscribe, and above all, share. Please, guys, I need more views. Anyway, until my next video, this is Captain H, signing out. Before I sign out, yes, I'm using this microphone. I took my microphone and put it on someone else's microphone that's not currently working. Anyway, until my next video, this is Captain H, signing out. Good